Staff mocked him with sleeping daughter, then saw his name. Above the door, the lobby of the Aldine had a particular way of making people feel small. The marble floors returned every sound louder than it arrived. The chandeliers hung at a height that communicated, without words, that the space had not been built for comfort but for impression. The staff behind the front desk wore their expressions, the way the hotel wore its architecture, with the composure of people who had long ago decided that professionalism and warmth were not quite the same thing, and that only one of them was strictly required. It was into this lobby that Daniel Reeves walked on a Thursday evening in October, carrying two things. The first was his daughter Maya, 4 years old and deeply asleep against his left shoulder. Her small fist curled around the ear of a stuffed rabbit she called Captain Ears. The rabbit had been restitched twice. One of its button eyes sat higher than the other, giving it the look of permanent mild surprise. Maya had carried it everywhere for 2 years and received any suggestion of retirement with the focused outrage that 4-year-olds reserve for genuine injustice. The second was a paper bag from the bakery, 3 blocks east, a birthday cake, chocolate with raspberry filling, because Maya had been specific in the way she was specific about everything that mattered, which he had been holding at exactly the right angle for 6 blocks to keep the frosting from touching the side of the bag. He had maintained that angle on the subway, through the revolving door, all the way to the front desk, where he shifted Maya higher on his shoulder and looked at the receptionist with the patient expression of a man who needed one final thing to be simple. The receptionist's name was Brandon. He was 24, 7 months into the job, and had developed in that time a talent for rapid assessment that he mistook for professionalism. He looked at Daniel, the worn jacket, the 2-day stubble, the sleeping child, the paper bag from a neighborhood bakery, and completed his evaluation in 3 seconds. "Can I help you?" he said with the inflection that turns a question into its own answer. Daniel gave his name. He gave his reservation number. Brandon consulted the screen with the unhurried manner of someone performing a courtesy rather than conducting a search. "I'm not finding anything under that name," Brandon said. Daniel gave the number again. Brandon looked at the screen again. "Sir," and the word carried with it an entire structure of implication. "Are you certain you booked with us specifically?" The woman who emerged from the back office had the quiet efficiency of someone who monitors situations before being asked to. Her name was Catherine. She was the assistant manager, and she had built her approach around the belief that the Aldine's reputation was something to be protected, that protecting it sometimes meant managing certain categories of guests before a problem had a chance to develop. She had watched Daniel cross the lobby. She had noted the jacket, the bag, the child, the absence of luggage. She arrived at Brandon's side with a pleasant expression and the posture of someone who has already decided. "Good evening," she said. "I understand there may be some confusion. Unfortunately, we're fully committed this evening. If there's been an error somewhere in the process—" "There hasn't been an error," Daniel said. He had a low-level way of speaking that came from years of not needing volume to be heard. "I made this reservation 6 weeks ago. I have the confirmation number. I have the email." Catherine's expression remained pleasant, which was its own kind of message. "I understand your frustration," she said, "but without a verified booking in our system, there's very little we can do. I'd be happy to suggest some alternative accommodations in the—" She did not finish the sentence. A man had appeared from the elevator bank. He moved with the unhurried certainty of someone who knew every corner of a building because he had walked those corners for most of his adult life. He was 61, silver-haired, with the particular stillness of people who have spent decades making significant decisions and learned not to perform the weight of them. His name was Arthur Reeves. He was the founder of the Aldine Group, which owned 14 properties across 7 cities. This hotel was the original, and the one he was most careful about. He did not visit often. When he did, he never announced himself. He had learned this from his father, who had believed the truest measure of any operation was what it looked like when no one thought they were being watched. He had come this evening because his granddaughter turned 5 tomorrow, And his son had called 3 weeks ago with something to show him. Arthur had cleared his Thursday. He had been in the building 12 minutes, crossing the lobby from the executive floor, when he heard his son's voice. He stopped. He stood 20 feet from the front desk and watched. He watched Brandon consult a screen that held the answer and fail to find it. He watched Catherine arrive with her pleasant expression and quiet architecture of dismissal. He watched his son stand with a sleeping child on one shoulder and a birthday cake in his other hand, receiving with patient silence what the Aldine was choosing to offer him. He did not intervene immediately. He watched for another 30 seconds because he had always believed that character is most visible when a person thinks no one is looking. He wanted to see. He saw Brandon's small smirk toward the screen. He saw Catherine's slight lean, the almost invisible angle of two people sharing a private understanding about the man on the other side of the counter. He saw his son, who had grown up watching this business being built, who had made his own choices and been honest about them, which Arthur had respected, standing in the lobby of his family's hotel being managed like an inconvenience. Arthur walked to the desk. He walked without announcement, without hurry, at the pace of a man who understood that arrival is its own kind of statement. Brandon saw him first. There was a half-second where his expression did not change because he had not yet placed the face. Then he placed it. The face was in the photograph near the entrance, the black and white one from 1987. Arthur, at 32, standing in front of this building on the day it opened. The face was now standing 3 feet away from him. "Mr. Reeves," Brandon said. "Hello, Brandon," Arthur said. He had read the name badge without appearing to read it. He looked at Catherine. Catherine. Her expression had undergone a rapid, visible reorganization. "Mr. Reeves, we weren't expecting—" "No," Arthur said. "You weren't." He looked at his son. Daniel looked back with the expression of a man who is tired, glad, and trying not to be quietly amused. "Dad," Daniel said, "how long have you been standing here?" "Long enough." Arthur looked at Maya, still asleep, one hand gripping Captain Ears with the unconscious conviction of a child who has decided that certain things are worth holding even in sleep. "She's gotten big," he said. "She turns 5 tomorrow," Daniel said. "I booked the suite." "The one her grandmother liked?" Arthur looked at Brandon, then at Catherine. He did not raise his voice. He said, in the same level tone he used for all significant things, "Please find my son's reservation and give him the suite." Brandon found it in 11 seconds. It had been there the entire time, filed correctly under Daniel Reeves, flagged for a special occasion, with the birthday amenities package noted and waiting in a refrigerator on the 7th floor. They rode the elevator up in silence. Maya stirred when the doors opened, blinked at the light, looked at her grandfather, said Grandpa in the flat declarative tone of a very tired child confirming a known fact, and went back to sleep. "She recognized you," Daniel said. "Smart kid," Arthur said. Then, after a moment, "I'll be speaking with Catherine tomorrow." "I know," Daniel said. "Brandon is young. He may learn." Daniel looked at him. "Catherine isn't young." "No," Arthur said. "She isn't." The suite was ready. The birthday amenities were exactly as requested. Balloons in Maya's favorite colors, a banner that read, "Happy Birthday, Maya," in letters she would be able to read herself, because Daniel had been specific, and someone in reservation 6 weeks ago had listened carefully and written it all down. Daniel set Maya on the bed. She curled into the position she always curled into, Captain Ears against her chest. He put the cake on the table. He stood looking at the room his mother had loved, the one she had asked him to come back to, not for himself, but for Maya. So the place would mean something to the next generation, too. Arthur stood in the doorway before going. "You should have told them who you were," he said. Daniel looked at him. "Should I have needed to?" Arthur was quiet for a moment. "No," he said. "You shouldn't have." He said goodnight and went downstairs. The lobby was the same. The marble, the chandeliers, the practiced stillness. He stood in it before making the calls he needed to make, and thought about the difference between a hotel that impresses and one that welcomes. and how losing the second thing in service of the first was a loss a place might never notice until it was too late. Upstairs, Maya slept. Tomorrow she would be 5. Captain Ears kept watch. Some promises, kept late and without ceremony, are the most important ones of all. The most powerful people in any room are often the ones who never say so. And the most revealing moment in any place is not when it performs at its best for someone it recognizes, but what it does for someone it doesn't.